welcome to I Remember When, sponsored by the Gresham Historical Society. I'm Gwenda McCall. This evening we're going to be visiting with a gentleman who's spent his entire life in Gresham. He's brought some interesting pictures and stories to share with us, so I'd like you to meet Don Page. Don, thank you for joining us this evening.
You're welcome.
I understand that your great-grandfather, was
Right.
the first one of your relatives to come to Gresham. Can you tell us a little about him?
Well, he was a Civil War veteran and had been captured and was in Libby prison in the South during the war. And when he was released, he came to Gresham. He was the first Baptist minister in Gresham, and that was probably, I think, around 1882, some in that area.
Then was he in the little Baptist church that was on Powell?
No,
that was
before that. There wasn't even a real church there. They were just using houses, I understand.
I think we have a picture of him here.
No, that's my grandfather.
Oh, that's your grandfather.
That's my grandfather, this little man.
That's your grandfather was even before this.
Oh, yes, yes.
Oh, my goodness. That was a while back.
Yes.
All
This was
right.
1892, I believe. And he was here a good 10, 12 years before that.
Now, I see your grandfather is holding a basket. Can you tell me?
Those were eggs. He used to bring down eggs, and he'd take them into the grocery store and sell them. And he had a small farm of 20 acres just, well, in South Roberts, right near where Carroll Funeral Home is now. And people did that in those days. Even in town, every house would have a garden and usually have a chicken coop. And all those eggs that they couldn't use or chickens they couldn't use, they would trade for groceries. That was a common practice in those real early days.
Did they trade them for services too? Like the doctor and the
yes,
barber?
Yes, most of the, even that went way up into the 20s, and during the Depression that was done a lot. People would trade things because they just didn't have have money, so they would bring in a chicken or something of that nature to trade for services.
I like this picture especially because way back in the distance is the steeple of the little First Baptist Church that is now becoming the
That's right.
Gresham Historical Society's museum when they get it finished. And that was, I think, about the fourth wooden building built in town.
I don't recall that. Well, of course, I don't recall it. That's long before my time, but I don't recall hearing that. All I know is that is the old church.
And those streets are really muddy. Good old Gresham rain, huh? Now we have another one here. 1907.
That's still long before my time. Well, that's Robertson Powell.
And it's all residential here, and now Robertson Powell is a couple of banks.
Well, that's where your Benjamin Franklin and the Sandy's.
Kodak at Sandy's.
Kodak at Sandy's, and what was Penny's.
Right. This especially interests me because of the board sidewalks.
Oh, there were board sidewalks all over town. Even in the 20s, there were a lot of board sidewalks.
Oh, there still were.
Especially on the south side of Powell.
And this is obviously a 4th of July parade with the floats. And we have another one here. Main and Powell, 1915, the year you were born.
The year I was born. Well, over here is Gresham Drug, where Gresham Drug is now, and that was the original Gresham Drug. And this side would be where the park is now.
Oh, you mean the Main City Park?
Well, sure.
This is where Main City Park is now?
Down. See, this was all built on stilts.
Yeah, that's always fascinated me. Now you can see down in the park right from the street.
That's right.
But before the roads were so narrow that they could push the buildings out onto what is now the street and put the back of them on stilts.
On stilts, yes.
And what were some of the buildings that were where Main City Park is now?
Well, this is, like I say, I don't recall any of these, particularly because they built buildings after that. Those were torn down and others put in more concrete structures. And these were long gone by the time, in the 20s, they were gone. And newer buildings were put up.
Right. Now, this is not a paved road, right?
No.
Does that look like dirt to you?
No, that's dirt.
At least it wasn't too muddy that day. And the Dowsett family started that Gresham Rexall, didn't they? And they still have it after all these years?
Yes.
All right, we have another one here. 1919.
Now that was, I think, at the end of World War I. Oh, July 4th, 1919.
Oh, July 4th.
Yes. Well, I can faintly remember that. I was about 5 years old, and I can remember going downtown and seeing all the noise and the fireworks and things of that nature.
Looks like the whole town came out,
It
because
did.
I don't think
They
there
did for
were
everything like
1,000
that.
people in town by then. Now,
Everybody did.
this is Main and Powell, and we're looking north on Main
You're
Street.
looking north on Main. This is the druggore.
Gresham Drug still there.
This was the bank over here, the First State Bank, it was
First State
called in those
Bank.
time. There was another, here was the Gresham Real Estate Company. Here is where Amaton's is now. At that time was, well, it was even before Hicks. I couldn't tell you who that name was, but above it was the Masonic Hall.
With the good dance floor.
Good dance floor.
I remember
Good
that part.
maple floor. And of course the old statue, we all remember that.
I don't.
Well, it was there quite a long while.
Boy, I wish we could find that statue now.
Well, we've been looking for it, and
no one seems
no
to
one
know, huh?
seems to know. It kind of disappeared. It, understand it went down to Lambert Gardens originally, but from there nobody knows
Oh,
where it
that's
went.
too bad. I was hoping they'd find it in somebody's barn or
It'd be
something.
wonderful.
Now, it was originally built as a horse trough, correct?
Yeah, it was a horse trough, yes. It was a fountain there. The water would go into the trough.
And she's all draped out for the 4th of July.
Oh, you bet.
All right. Before we go on with any more of these large photos, let's take some looks at pictures of you as a baby.
Oh, no.
Yes, yes. I have some beautiful ones. This is you and your mom and dad.
That's right. That was taken probably about 1920.
Before your little sister was born.
Yes, before my sister was born.
And what did your dad do at this time?
At that time, he was working for the railway company, Portland Railway Light and Power. He was a station agent in Portland at First and Alder.
You drive clear downtown Portland every day to go to work?
No, we lived in Portland at that time.
Oh,
Just
you
for a very
did?
short time
Oh,
we
you
lived in
did?
Portland, and that's when that picture was taken, I'm sure.
Oh. And now, but you weren't born in Portland. You were born in
No, I
Gresham.
was born in Gresham, where the City Hall is now, City Park is now.
There aren't any homes there
There was at that time. There was one house there.
in City Park.
Yeah, yes.
On the which side of Main Street?
That would be on the west side of Main.
The
right
west.
Right at the end of Main Street, where the tracks are, where the railroad tracks are. There was a little knoll and a house there, which belonged to the railway company. And Dad at that time was working at the. He was a station agent there, and that was part of his salary was a house.
Oh.
He lived in the house. That's where I was born.
You were born right in that house.
Mhm.
Now, as a station agent, did he have to switch the tracks or?
Well, no,
Take tickets, or-
he had to. Of course, he sold tickets and did everything, but he had to get up. I remember at 4 o'clock in the morning. I don't remember, but I've been told this. He'd had to get up at 3 or 4 in the morning and go across the street from the house to the station, where it was a substation over there. He had to throw a switch to put the power through so the train could go on to Estacada.
So that was the easiest way to get to Estacada at that time, was
Oh,
then
yes,
was to
that
ride
was
the
a good way
train?
to go, yes. It went up through Boring and Eagle Creek and
Well,
Estacada.
did people just hop the train more
yes.
than driving cars? Was it easier?
Well, there weren't that many roads in a lot of places, and there weren't that many cars. And kids went to high school. They lived out in Old Pleasant Home and places like that would get on the train and come to school.
Oh, for heaven's sake. How long would it take them?
Oh, not over about a half an hour or so. It wasn't too far.
No more than a bus ride now.
People from Boring and from Pleasant Home like that, and they would, because they didn't run any buses in those days, and the farmers all brought their merchandise into town that way too on the train. And
would you hop the train to go to Portland for the day?
Many times, yes. That's the way we went, because it was quick at the time, and there wasn't, as I remember it, there weren't buses until about 1925 or 24, somewhere around there is when they started one bus into Portland. And
so light rail is not a new invention?
oh gosh, no. That's been going on for generations.
We have a photograph here that was taken from the front porch of that home at the end of Main Street, correct?
That's where I was born, and that was looking across the street into what is now the city park.
But it's so different because it doesn't look like the city park now.
No, hardly. Well, Johnson Creek used to go, if I may show you, used to start up here behind where Carroll's is now and go clear down to the right under Main Street practically, and then come back around and go.
So it made a great big hairpin curve right through
U-turn,
the park.
so to speak. And so consequently, when they'd have a heavy rain or a heavy snow and the melt-off would come, why, there was no place for the water to go quickly, so what had happened, it would flood back down there in that area.
Now, was this a park?
No.
It wasn't a park then, it was just a
So
big
there were,
flat land?
later on there there were houses down there, and there was a pickle factory, we call it here.
A real pickle factory?
A pickle factory, right. And, oh, let's see. Eventually, too, along here were Japanese farms down in here, the truck farms, vegetable farms, and there were several buildings up there before you got to Main Street.
But then at the end of Main Street, on the left-hand side was the train station, and on the right-hand side was your little house.
That's right.
Okay. And is this the Methodist church I see way back here, kind of that sticking up in the middle there? Is that the Methodist church?
Yes, it is.
That's
the steeple of the Methodist church.
Okay. And it was torn down?
Oh, yes.
And that was the church your family attended? But your great-grandfather was a Baptist minister.
That's right. And Mother strayed.
Do you want to share why she chose to go to a different church?
Well, I think a lot of it was because of the strictness of at that time, of the Baptist church. I wouldn't know for sure, but she wanted us to be able to do things that we couldn't do otherwise.
Like
Dancing,
dance, sure.
Things of that.
Play cards.
Play cards, right.
And the home of your grandfather, the
That's
home on Robert Street. Now you say he had 20 acres.
He had 20 acres in there, which was mostly in orchards.
What kind of orchards?
Well, he had cherries and apples and pears, prunes, and that was about it. Various number of different varieties of apples and a couple of varieties of pears.
Did you help him in the orchard? Do you remember?
No, all I did was help him eat it. I ate a lot of fruit in those days.
And here's a close-up of the same home with your grandfather in a car.
Who never drove a car in his life. Somebody had brought it there and he sat in there, so he was driving it.
Now this home is still there,
yes,
isn't it, on Roberts?
yes,
It's about
yes.
3rd and Roberts?
Yes, between 3rd and 4th and Roberts, yes. It originally, the street at that face was Lawrence Avenue, or Lawrence Street, which was my grandfather's name. And when they changed the city around and changed the streets, they made that 4th Street and took away the... See, that's Lawrence addition to Gresham.
And 4th Street, that's that one goes straight through to Hogan now.
That's right, yes.
Okay. Let's see, we have another picture here of Gresham in 1925. Now you're 10 years old in during this time. And here we have the vintage cars, and here we have Gresham Rexall Drug
That's
again.
right.
We're looking north Up
north,
Main.
Up Main.
This is
right,
Powell. And on the left-hand side is the First State Bank.
Right.
Now, these buildings on this left-hand side of this bank, these are not here now at all. It's a parking lot, right?
That's the big parking lot there to Cloud Tree and Son.
Or Glass Butterfly.
Glass Butterfly.
Butterfly.
Sorry. And above that was doctor's offices and dentist's office. And another bank was down here, the Bank of Gresham. And above that were doctor's offices and attorneys and dentists. Oh, and then on this side, of course, then we came down to Hessel's, I believe, was here at that. Yeah, Hessel's was here at that time. Hessel Implement, they called it in those days.
Where Cloud Tree is now.
Yeah, that's right. Next to it was Kidder Hardware, and next to that was Walrat Mercantile, I think they called it.
And then the first J.C. Penney was down on Main Street there.
Further down. It isn't visible in this picture. But the pool hall here, you have to show the pool hall, which they called the bucket of blood in those days.
Really?
Mr. Murphy had it. Mr. Murphy, Mr. Dan Murphy, and he was.
Now, Dan Murphy is a contemporary of yours, so it must have been his father.
His father,
yes.
His father had it, yes.
All right. Why did they call it the bucket of blood?
I don't know. That's just one of those things that kind of comes along as time goes on.
I've always wanted to ask this question now. Were pool halls in Gresham in 1925 like they are in the Music Man? There were no-nos, you don't go there?
Well, see, there was no, that was during Prohibition. So, of course, the only thing they could sell would be near beer. And, but they didn't let kids in, no.
Oh, I was wondering. They wouldn't let a 10-year-old boy
because they
hang
had
around.
they had pool tables, and they played an awful lot of cards. The older gentlemen would come in and stay there all day and play cards. And so they didn't let kids in.
And what about theaters? Do you remember there being a theater in Gresham when you were about 10 years old?
Sure was a theater. There was a theater. The Gresham Theater was right where, trying to think just exactly, well, be right where this Gresham travel agency is, a little agency.
Premier Travel?
Premier Travel,
Premier
right
Travel.
in that area. It was a little theater, and they had in those days they had a piano player who played for all the performances, and it cost us 10 cents to go to the movies.
Did you get to go very often?
Oh, probably once a week, because at those days it was a Saturday town. Everybody came to town on Saturday. They did their shopping for a week, and they'd come in and bring their car and park, and all the ladies would talk and visit and do some shopping, and they'd usually turn the kids loose, and we'd go to the show for a dime, if we could find a dime.
If you could find it, and get some penny candy.
Oh, yes.
I brought one little item I'd like to share. This was my mother's, and it's a little purse that she carried on her wrist. It's sterling silver, and in this little purse she'd go off to the movies by herself. I guess there wasn't a fear in those days of going off by yourself to the movies. And inside there's a slot for her little coins.
Isn't that?
I've never
lovely.
seen one like it. Isn't that unique?
Oh, that is a treasure. That's a real treasure.
Boy, if she could have put a penny in every slot, or a coin in every slot, she'd have been doing good then if the movies were only a dime.
That's correct.
Now, I have another picture here of you as a child with your little sister.
My little baby sister.
In a beautiful wicker baby carriage, a treasured antique now. And you're wearing your little overcoat.
No, that's just a coat.
Oh, just a jacket?
Just a jacket.
A jacket?
But I had a new watch with a chain that I was quite proud of.
Oh, that's darling. And this is a picture of your father when he was working for the train.
That was right across from where we lived.
Oh, this is right next to Main Street.
Yeah, this was right there where the shops are now, only right close to the tracks, because this was the office, and over here was that little substation where you'd have to throw the switch. And
are these brick buildings still there?
No.
Oh, I was going to run back and look. This is great.
That brick building was there for a long time as just a just standing.
Mm-hmm.
But it hasn't been there for quite a while now.
Oh, this is one of my favorites. I knew this would make you smile. This is a photograph in front of West Gresham School.
Correct.
Which was built in
1922.
And you were just entering the 2nd grade, but
Yes.
you're a little older in this picture,
Yes.
correct?
Mm-hmm.
And we'll have a close-up here of your face. This was a play?
Made of the Golden Slipper, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure. But anyway, it was an operetta.
An operetta. And your lovely wife, Alice, is in this picture,
That's
too.
correct. Yep. Yes.
So you grew up together.
Mm-hmm. Same town.
You probably don't ever remember not knowing her.
No,
Then
I
if-
really remember ever since. Of course, they came here in 1926. So that had to be, about probably around 1927, 28.
Mm-hmm.
But, that was a big time for practically the whole student body was in it.
And West Gresham is still in use now.
Yes.
That's beautiful. And do you remember the night you proposed to your wife?
Oh boy. Yeah, it was on a decoration day.
Decoration Day?
Mhm.
Do you remember the situation? Had you planned it?
No.
No?
I'd planned doing it eventually, but I just came out one time, and that was it.
And then you were married in 1939.
Right.
And now this is after high school, obviously. So what kind of employment did you have then?
I was working for Portland General Electric then, in Portland.
Oh, in Portland.
Mm-hmm.
Did you take the train every day?
Yes.
You did?
Part of the time, until they more or less discontinued it.
And then the war came along.
That's right.
All right, now go ahead and tell us now what the war did to your marriage and your life, how your life was changed then by the war.
Just meant that we were separated for a while here and there, and whenever I'd get any type of a permanent type place to stay, why she would come and she worked for the government, and which kept us together when I was able to be in one place for any length of time.
Mm-hmm. Now, what branch of the service were you in?
In the Air Force.
Stationed in
In the South.
in the South.
In the South, in Arkansas, and Texas, Alabama, Tennessee.
Now, did you fly out of the country?
No,
No.
no, never did.
But Alice couldn't be with you the whole time, so she came back to Gresham and spent some time in Gresham.
Right?
And what stories does she tell you about what items were scarce here during the war?
Well, most everything was short. You had to have a ration book for everything, and even for shoes and things of that nature, you had to have a ration book. We lived on one ration book for a while because I couldn't get one, being in the service. Well, I couldn't have one, and we made out.
And then after the war, how did Gresham do after the war?
Well, it was kind of a boom town after the war because at that time everything was in such short supply, and this being a farming community, and berries, which were the big item in the area. In fact, the town either made it or didn't make it on the harvest of berries, and that right after the war, of course, the price was extremely high, and a lot of the growers made good money.
What were the berries selling for then? When you say
Oh, I couldn't tell you the exact price. Probably selling for, they were probably getting about 10 cents a pound or something of that nature.
which at that time was wonderful.
yeah,
Now we're
because
25,
they-
27 cents a pound.
But they only paid a few cents a pound to pick them, too.
You have a story to tell about a car that you bought after the war. You came home and cars were very scarce.
Oh, yeah. That's kind of interesting. Guy Fieldhouse, who had the Fieldhouse Chevrolet Company at that time, when I was in the service, we had a car, and you couldn't get gasoline. It was all rationed, and Alice didn't have the use for it, so she traded it in and sold it. And Guy Fieldhouse said, fine, he said, I'll give you such and such for it, but I'm holding back $100 because cars are going to be in short supply when you get out, and we're starting a list, and you'll have a down payment, not a down payment, but something down on a car, so you'll be top of the list.
Oh, great.
And so when I got out, after a couple months, I had a new car. It cost us $1,120. I'll never forget it. Now that's a pittance, but at that time that was quite a lot of money.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
We have one more picture here I have to be sure and share. This is, well, you go ahead and tell us what this is.
Well, that was my father's store, which he bought in 1919.
When you were 4 years old.
Yes, and
it's located?
It's where Zim's is now. It's a 12-mile store. And upstairs was a place where his hired man lived. Excuse me, he had well, there was another building behind, which was used as for storing hay and grain and feeds, because there was an awful lot of little small farms who had 2 or 3 animals on the farm, and we had to take groceries to them.
Oh,
and
he delivered?
We delivered. Every day of the week we had a different route. We went to Troutdale, and we went up on Victory Heights, and Fairview, and then west of town way, west of the intersection there ways, and we would deliver groceries. People would phone in and order their groceries, and then if they had eggs, which like I said originally, a lot of people had a few chickens, and then we would pick up their eggs and take them into Portland and sell them to other dealers in Portland.
Mm-hmm.
And then this, of course, was paid for the groceries of the people.
Mm-hmm.
And they paid their bill once every 6 months, usually, hopefully, not always.
Well, Don, thank you so much for being with us this evening. I know that I have learned a lot about Gresham history, and I have enjoyed it so much, and I'm sure our audience has too. I'd like to ask you to join us again next month when we will have another visitor. Maybe we'll get the woman's side of the story way back when. And I'd also like to remind all of you parents who live in East County, if you are raising children in Gresham, Gresham may not be your hometown, but it is your children's. Let's give our children a sense of pride and heritage in our city. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Gwenda McCall. Good night.